Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome everybody to Justice Served TV. Michael Bryant here live from Dedham, Massachusetts.
Hi.
Day 12. Oh yeah, there's Linda Kenney Baden.
Yeah, hi.
How
My
are you?
brother feel like just left you. I mean, what a day! What a day! What a day!
It was
day!
quite a long day, as we heard from one of the key witnesses for the prosecution. I don't care how you liked or didn't like the testimony; it was key when Sergeant Bukhenik, Yuri Bukhenik, took the stand today, and even more interestingly, when cross-examination began. So I know we got a lot of thoughts about that. We're going to get into it in some detail, but we have a special guest. Before we do that, as I'm wandering the streets here, trying to evade arrest, I run into a lot of amazing residents of not just I call it the Tri-Cities here, Dedham, Canton, Stoughton, and so I was chatting with a group of folks on the sidewalk just before they broke for the day, and I asked one of those folks to join us. She is a longtime, I don't know if you're called a Cantonian or a Cantonite, but she's been in Canton forever, it seems, and she's
Cantonese.
Cantonese. I didn't think of that. And she's she's seen many things prior to Karen Reed, and so I thought it would be great to bring on Gail White and talk about what life was like before this trial, what she's seen as it's evolved, and maybe what she expects once the circus folds up a tent and leaves town. Gail, thank you for being here. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine. How are you guys?
Good. This
Can you hear me?
Linda Kenney Baden, right.
Hi, Gail. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming on. Really enjoy. We've met some fabulous people from up in Canton, Dedham area.
Yeah. Well, I've lived here my whole life, so you've got a real Cantonite.
I got the Cantonite. Okay, we were trying to figure it out. Okay.
So let's start with, as we continue to enjoy the Starlink pluses and minuses of an overcast evening, what are some of the things you've seen happen in this town of yours that have gotten you so upset? And maybe the Karen Reed case is just kind of an example of some of the things you've seen.
Well, I mean, at one time I was just like everybody else. I went to work, I came home, and I let the town kind of run itself. And then as soon as we got our new select board member, Chris Albert, whose family's involved in the Karen Reed murder trial, something just didn't seem right to me. And I started researching, and one by one, the blocks started to tumble, so to speak. More and more deceit, more and more corruption, more and more people started covering up and saying things that just didn't sound right. And then I started following the Karen Reed case, and I said, something is not right here. And the more I heard, the more upset I got, and the more driven I became to get involved in following this and believing that Karen was innocent.
As you can tell, sorry, sirens. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When did you become the select board member? That seems to be the triggering event here.
Right.
Maybe it was just a.
Yeah. It was shortly after the Karen Reed case. John O'Keefe, was found dead. Chris Albert was voted in as a new select board member, and it seemed almost like he was asked to run. Everybody was just not paying attention in Canton, and just his pals vote him in. And most people in Canton, I will tell you, don't vote. We go to work, we come home, we do our thing. They pick their kids up, they go to soccer, they go to softball, they go to baseball, and they were letting the town run itself with the same people had run it for 30 something years, and we had no clue. We had no clue how many favors, how many kickbacks, how many, pals were backing each other in Canton. And if you weren't in that crowd and you didn't know and you didn't need a service or a favor, you were clueless in Canton, basically. We became very aware very quickly.
Wow. By the way, thank you, Scooter54, for joining us. Just became a new YouTube member. Thank you for joining us. A great night to join us to listen to Gail, because we have been saying that the Canton Reed case seems to be a symptom that everyone's latched onto it, because it's a symptom of what appears to be going on. That finally that you can rally around something. Do we have that right, or are we just feeling something that's not there?
Well, for us, it was not only the Karen Reed case that was going on, but we started seeing deception, corruption, favoritism. Things weren't measuring up. Lies are being told. Things weren't matching what we were hearing, what we were seeing, what the court papers were documenting. We started going back to murders that had happened, and there was a whole lot of misinformation. And it was, they had been having a field day in Canton. Okay. And we were basically out to lunch. I will tell you, the town was out to lunch. The town was run by a certain group of people for so long. And as long as, the taxes were paid and the fire trucks came when you had a fire, everybody was like clueless. The Karen Reed broke out the fact that there is a certain group of people that run the town of Canton. Okay, there's a certain people in Canton, when they have a problem, they snap their fingers, they call a private cell phone, and they get it taken care of. Even if they're wrong, they get the treatment of anybody else. And I said, if you're not in trouble and you're minding your own business, you don't know. But once you know, you can't forget. And it's just like we started seeing a lot of people, in the first trial, that what they were saying, we knew from following this trial that what they were saying was lies. And it just seemed like we started having distrust in our police department. We started catching, things that were done wrong, officers that were not following protocol, officers that were drinking on the job, officers that were losing their gun, losing their badges, favoritism, officers leaving their dogs in cars and overheating and suddenly getting 2 weeks paid vacation and their cars cleaned, all on our dime. And it just kept going on. Meanwhile, the Karen Reed case is going on. We've got all this distrust, dishonesty. We decide to collect signatures and get a police audit because we've lost trust in our police department. And now our chief of police has decided she's retiring. Yeah, sure. She's retiring, all right. Basically, she had to retire.
And so you've suggested that for whatever the negatives the Karen Reed light may be shining on this town for the world, things seem to be getting better. And you mentioned the police chief deciding to resign.
Right. I mean, supposedly they're supposed to be hiring an independent company like they did for the audit, which was a complete joke. An independent audit for $200,000. I mean, I think they were picking and choosing what they wanted. To me, that was a complete waste of the town's money. But hopefully, we're supposed to be getting an independent company that is going to select a police chief that should be good for the town of Canton, that doesn't owe anybody any favors, that doesn't have pals in the background. We want somebody that's going to treat everybody in Canton the same. If somebody breaks the law, everybody should be treated the same. And if you have a problem, you should be able to call and get treatment, and not have a pal get better treatment. It got so bad that my friend fell in the parking lot and he didn't call for help. He broke his pelvis.
Wow.
I didn't feel confident to call the police. I don't know who is a good police officer in Canton, and I don't know who the bad ones were. 7 police officers left the force. 7. They are 7 police officers short in our department now. 7 police officers left. Wow. Because I'm pretty sure that they were not comfortable. When you're a newly employed police officer, you know what I mean? And you come into the Goodfellows Society and you see things that aren't right. I mean, Sandra Birchmore case, the next town over, is a pure example. I mean, you've got to tell me that those officers didn't know what those, what those guys were doing to Sandra Birchmore, and they looked the other way. I mean, there's a lot of looking the other way in Canton too. Sometimes people in power can continue to do things that aren't right, but they got so many people backing them that a regular average person doesn't stand a chance. You know, even if things are not right, not corrupt, they get somebody covering up, somebody doing somebody a favor, and it's just like you're wasting your time. So it got very, very depressing living here, very upsetting, very distrustful. I mean, people were afraid. People are still making fun of us for living in Canton. It's really sad. How can you live there? How can you stand what they're doing? I mean, who can you call? Who can you trust? And it's like, you know, I mean, I had Karen Reed signs in my yard. Every single sign was stolen. I mean, everybody involved has had to get cameras. I've lived in Canton. It'll be 71 years in July, and I've never had to get cameers. I had to get cameras.
Wow.
Why? Because I didn't feel safe.
By the way, Scott McGinnis has joined. Scott McGinnis, who's been also preaching too, has joined our chat here tonight. So, hi, Scotty. You know. So no, that is horrifying. Now there was an election. Now I know there was a big deal that because somebody got elected, somebody got unelected, somebody got shown the door, and someone else is coming in. Tell us about that. Yeah, John Conley was a select, board member for 30 plus years in Canton, and he was very well connected with, we call them the McAlberts, and a lot of. I mean, we were out protesting either to get a new police chief or to get signatures for the audit or for Karen Reed. And we heard multiple contractors lean out of their, pickup trucks and ask us to ask John Conley about the kickbacks he's getting in town. And we heard a lot of stories. I mean, people that are in the business, people that are in a building. There's certain people in Canton that get the jobs for building new apartment buildings, new homes. There's certain people that always get the contracts, the deals, the plots of land that are available before anybody else gets it, or they get the better deal. You know what I mean? And it seems like the town is sewn up with 1, 2, 3, 4 people run the whole town of Canton. And without John there, to back his boys, and hopefully we've got somebody else in now that we elected, and that is going to fight fairly for the citizens of Canton and hopefully do the right thing and not do a favoritism and do what's right. Wow. Wow.
I mentioned, Gail, that things seem to be getting better because of the light being shined. You mentioned John Connolly. He's out now.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen when this little circus folds its tent and moves along and Canton kind of returns to that quiet little town?
Well, where our eyes are open. I mean, for us, the little sleepy town of Canton, to vote John Conley out, who has been a select board member for like 34 years, we have like 7 precincts in Canton. By the time the 2nd precinct came in, we knew John Conley was out. That is a historical win. That means Canton is paying attention. That means the McAlberts that thought they had the town, that was actually told by Denise Galvin when she told Alan Jackson, get out of her town. It's not your town. It's our town.
Wait, tell me about this. I never heard of it. Tell me about that episode.
Well, Denise Galvin had she had an incident in salon parking lot across from the D&E.
Who is she, first of all? Who is she?
Denise Galvin is the older sister of Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe's the one that supposedly, Googled how long to die in the cold.
Right.
And she got a call from Chris Albert on a Saturday night and came down. Alan Jackson was there with the ABC News film crew, and Karen Reed was in the limousine waiting. I had a coworker that was in the parking lot that brought my attention to the fact that Karen was out there, and I heard screaming when she called me in the background. Chris was screaming. Denise came over screaming, filming my coworker. We basically called the episode the ABC D&E episode because D&E is the sub shop, and ABC News Film was there with Karen Reed, with Alan Jackson, and they were in CF McCarthy interviewing him, going over where John drank first, and then next to the salon parking lot is the waterfall. They were headed there next. Well, Denise Galvin got the call from Chris Albert because I guess nobody else was home. She came flying down screaming with her phone out, and she was screaming at Karen Reed in the parking lot across from D&E. Chris was screaming. I won't even tell you what he was calling Karen, but my coworker was caught in the middle. She called me. I was in the salon, and I heard terrible screaming. She says, Karen's in the parking lot. And basically, she was screaming out to Alan that get out of her town. This was her town, and a multitude of other disgusting things. She also picked on my coworker, and I just said to the coworker, get in the salon now. And she came in, and then Karen was still in the limousine, and they were supposed to go to Waterfall after they went to CF McCarthy's. So Alan Jackson ended up coming out of CF McCarthy's with the other ABC News film, and they caught the whole episode. The ABC News film caught the whole episode of Denise Galvin screaming at my coworker, at Karen, and Chris Albert was out there, and they ended up leaving. They never went to Waterfall that night. I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, I got a call from Alan Jackson the next day asking me what happened. And I hooked him up with a coworker, and I said I wasn't there, but she was. And ABC News film said we had the whole thing captured on film. And that's when she told him to get out of her town.
And she's the one, for people that don't know, they're not watching the trial. She was the she took down the timeline that Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe were making, supposedly at the request of John O'Keefe's mother. But she's sitting there in the courtroom, and as a matter of fact, I think wasn't it Alan Jackson that had her pointed out, or was one of the attorneys? I forget who did the cross that had her. I guess it was Alan Jackson. So where is she sitting? She's sitting right here in the courtroom. So just for those of us who aren't following the trial, so they know.
Right. And what amazes me, she's taken down the timeline, but she wasn't there that night, you know. But she's taken the timeline down, which means Jen McCabe spent a lot of time talking to everybody and telling everybody what to say and what to do and what not to say. And Kerry never shuts up. Kerry talks. She's telling them everything. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, you know, like I said, the only people that know what really went on were the people that were there that night. You know what I mean? Everybody else is just, you know, surmising, you know what I mean?
So what happens when this trial's over? I mean, what happens? I mean, it sounds like the key players you're talking about, other than John Connolly, they're still in place.
Well, it's like OJ. OJ got free, didn't he? Didn't he? We all know he's guilty, and they let him free. And how was his life afterwards? You know,
well, pretty good till he got thrown in jail. But
right, it's screwed. But I'm telling you right now, people don't forget. I mean, their lives, if they know it, is no longer than lives as they know it. They can go along, but nobody in Canton has forgot. No one will ever forget.
So whatever power they may have had, perceived or real, you think is gone.
Gone. I'm really sure that it's gone, because we're watching now. We're on it. One by one, we're going to get the last select board out too.
Wow.
And the last select board member, his brother was lucky. He was the plow driver the night that John O'Keefe died. Talk about, you know?
Yeah.
That's why these people have dug their own hole. See, they were used to doing things, keeping things coming up, Brian Albert, everything's covered up, and that's it. They never thought Karen was going to fight back. They never thought that so many people were going to be so interested in what happened to Karen Read. As one by one, as the facts came out and her innocence was proven and documented and believed, you know, as everybody said, it could have been any one of us. You know, any one of us it could have been. And the more we heard, the more we believed what we were doing was right. I mean, I said that's why I said we were the first three to stand out in front of my house.
Scott McGinnis, by the way, says that Chris Albert also loses select board next election.
The expectation.
I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm really surprised if Chris Albert makes it through and he doesn't just quit. I mean, they're standing out now on Sundays with signs, Chris Albert, you know, hang it up, you know. It's just like, I mean, how much more? And I mean, half the select boards, he doesn't even show up. I mean, the night that they announced that Helena Rafferty was deciding to retire, they said Chris Albert won't be showing up tonight, and everybody started clapping. Then, and then 2 seconds later, it said, "Oh, we have another announcement. Helena Rafferty has decided to retire." Well, the place went crazy. So, of course, Michael Lofgren says, "Look, this is not a pep rally." We couldn't wipe the smiles off our face. You know what I mean? We were like, everybody was lined up the microphones to say, "Please, we need another police chief. You cannot renew her contract." The minute we have been screwed over and lied to so much, that we never ever thought that everything we've been doing was ever going to make a difference, and it has made a difference. The minute they announced that we got what we wanted, we're getting a new police chief and she's retiring, all the people lined up at the microphone said, well, we're done. We were like, ecstatic is the understatement. I sat in the back row with the select board, and I could see people's faces just smiling as the next select board announcements are going on. People, we were overjoyed. Overjoyed is an understatement. Ecstatic. We're just so proud of all the people that worked so hard to try to take our little town of Canton back and turn it into a town for everybody. A town we can feel safe, a town we can feel secure in, a town that people can raise their children. And I mean, I lived here as a little kid, you know what I mean? And collected pollywogs, and my mother rang the bell at dark to come in, and it was a great little town, you know what I mean? There was none of this, God, now you have to drive your kids everywhere, and it's like, walk around, the kids have to be, careful for, pedophiles, and it's really, it's just so sad that, kids can't be kids, without having to worry about, evil people. So we're trying to get our town back to the nice little town we remember. It's never going to back to be perfect, but at least we feel like we're doing something, and doing something's definitely better than doing nothing. And we've been doing nothing. We let them have a field day, and our eyes open, and the new people that have moved into Canton, they're watching. We're so proud. We are so proud. How far we've come, and we're ecstatic. We're really ecstatic. So we're hoping that we will be on the road to a better Canton. It's got to be. It can't be any worse than what it's already been. So we'll see.
Well, Gail, we thank you so much for taking the time to chime in. I enjoyed your conversation on the street, and we'll keep in touch because you're one of. Is it Canton? Is it Cantonite? Well, how do you? What are you from Canton?
Yeah, usually we're a Cantonite. That's usually where the We're definitely not Cantonese. That's a little too Chinese and a little Asian. Okay. Cantonite. Yeah, usually it's a Cantonite. I mean, that's what I call myself, a Cantonite.
Okay, that's good enough for me since you've only been there 70 some years. So
Yeah, I'll be 71 on the 4th. 71 on the 4th. It's hard to believe. Pretty soon I'll be one of the oldest people in Canton here. Still on.
Well, you don't act like it, and you certainly don't have the energy of somebody a lot younger.
No, we just, I don't know. When we old people, it's funny. Myself and Carol Farwell Kelly and Kevin Colby, we were like, we did this like 2 years ago, you know what I mean? And something came over us. I don't know what is wrong. And we kind of stupidly, naively said, hey, let's stand out. No one knew who Karen Reed. So we decided to stand in front of my house with our little free Karen Reed signs, like 3. But we were possessed. We didn't care. We knew we were taking a tremendous chance. We knew there was going to be tremendous backlash. We knew, oh God, backlash, you have no idea. I mean, it was horrible. It was just horrible. Then we took it to the overpass, and then people said, hey, look at these old people. Look what they're doing. We can do this. This is great. We can bring out the fact that, Karen Reed needs exposure. You wake up, Karen. People, this can happen to Karen Reed. It can happen to you. Wake up. This is what's going on with Karen Reed. And the more and more we'd start with 3. We'd have 5. We'd have 7. We'd have 9. People start all across the United States. I only had 3. Don't worry. We only had 3 too. They go, really? I go, then we had 5. Then we had 9. We have 30. We have 50. We have 60. We have 75. We have 80. And now the standouts are all across the country into other countries, as they say, over the pond. We did that. 3 old people. It's pretty amazing. And when we were holding out a sign, free Karen, people go, who the hell's Karen? Who the hell is Karen? Well, they all know. You got to be under a rock if you don't know who Karen is. So, yeah, Karen stopped by our overpass, and her brother said, Karen, take our picture. Now, I'm getting to the overpass because it was the day after actually that morning I spoken to Ellen Jackson, so I got the stand out late. And Karen goes to take the pictures. Gail, is that you? I go, it's me. So I leave my little group, and I reach up. She reaches down. She says, I haven't missed the thing you've been doing. My team and I had tears in our eyes when we saw you guys standing out in the rain on the overpass. We were thrilled because the 2 nights before it was 98, 90 degrees, and we were dying from the heat. And I said, and I didn't even know she knew who I was. She says, I haven't missed the thing you've been doing. And it meant so much to her parents and to her to know that, you know, you travel a long, lonely road where you feel like you're never gonna, I mean, you can imagine the stress her parents went through, knowing that if her daughter, if they didn't fight for her daughter's life, she could well be spending her years in jail for a crime she didn't. You know what it did for them to know that we had their backs? I mean, it did their hearts good. And so for that, I'm really kind of proud of ourselves, even though we're old and now we're replacing with all these young kids that are just, you know, whatever. But we haven't lost the fire. We haven't lost the desire. And we have no quit, like Alan Jack says, and we're not going to get there, and we're going to be the end. We might be turning the ropes over to some of the youngest, because honest to God, we got exhausted. We got completely physically sick. We were doing select boards. We were doing standouts. We were doing Michael Morrissey stands out, fighting with it. It was like, oh, my grass was up. Everything was behind. I mean, we got burnt out. And, you know and it just,
we got to make Gail person of the, we're going to, you know, do we have our person of the week music? I mean, Gail really should be our person of the week. My God, Gail,
I mean, if you ever told us, if you seriously ever told us that we would be doing this, if you ever told me that I would be standing up and doing this, okay, I would have said, what are you, crazy? I mean, seriously, if you ever told me that in my 70th year, 69, 70, now almost 71 year, that I would be doing this, I would have said, you're crazy. You're crazy. But you know what? We got possessed. And we got possessed. We don't stop. Like Alan Jackson's, we ain't got no quit. So that's it.
There's an old folks, Arlo Guthrie, and he did back in the Vietnam War. He had Alice's Restaurant, a song, and he said, you know, when you got to sing it out for a movement. You know, it's a movement, but you got to sing it out. You got to shout it out to make it a movement.
That's
so
right.
People hear you. The louder you shout, the more people will hear you.
That's right. And it said, and nobody knew who Karen Reed was in the beginning, but they sure the hell know who Karen Reed is now.
Yes,
so,
they do.
It's a great thing. Yeah. And say hi to Scott for me, because Scott was standing out there at our select board. I didn't know who Scott was. Scott didn't know who I was, but I know who Scott is now. And he's done a lot for the movement. So, yeah, you got a good guy there with Scott.
You guys are so passionate. Thank you, Gail, so much. I will see you around the hood here. Thank you.
Yes, you will. Thanks so much. Enjoyed being on. Have a nice night. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Bye. She's
Wow.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
I had to get her warmed up there, but yeah.
No, but she's great. She's great. It goes to show you how you should feel, right? I mean, that's what you should be doing. Wow. You know, and it was really interesting because remember when you went to the jury view and the news reporters were reporting, I forget which one, that the neighbors were coming out and saying the only people on the street who believe, no one on the street believes Karen Reed is guilty. On the street, the Fairview, right?
Yeah,
she's innocent.
And the neighbor I talked to yesterday would be in that same camp, and he's 2 doors down, right? And he thinks the whole thing is, you know, just a lot. And he has a couple of kids. They're both girls that were roughly the same age as how many Albert children were in the home there with Brian? 1 or 2? I can't remember. But they weren't having a lot of neighborhood barbecues. And he suggested that there was some confrontation here or there at times. And I said, well, which way? You versus him versus you? And he said there were allegations of like stolen lawn furniture. And I mean, you know, nothing chills a neighborly relationship like, hey, can I have my rake back that you stole? So, you know, that's a neighborhood, though, good, bad, or otherwise. But to your point, I would put him in that same category of I don't think Karen Reed did anything wrong here. So
yeah.
Remember, this is the guy that the cops have not talked to yet. You know, 2 doors down.
Right, 2 doors down.
Still haven't talked to him.
Yeah, and the deputy police chief or whatever it is, his camera for 11 days they're going back and forth, and they don't ever get his camera recording anything. They don't even ask him.
Like a car on the street that might go by if the cop cars were in the neighborhood and not accounted for. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Speaking of police.
Yeah.
As I segue, we want to take a look at some of the court activity from today because there was a key witness. We knew it was coming.
I had to make my notes on a Harper's Bazaar magazine because I forgot my paper.
Because you ran out of gloves.
I ran out of gloves. I figured I'd try something new, maybe, you know, and all. But boy, yeah, you want to take a look at this, and I have a rant that I think is going to be posted tomorrow. I know. Cat was cutting it. Maybe it's what's that? That?
Somebody's stealing something. Get those police on this. So you want to tease the rant? What was it about in general?
No, it's about what we're going to watch. It's about Yuri Bukhenik, who had his has had his sneakers handed to him by Alan Jackson at the last trial. And by the way, we have another new member joining us tonight, Rayo Flight, new member. Thank you so much. Welcome to Law, the Justice Serve Law Night. I guess we call ourselves, you know, with the TV night. Sometimes we have a little martini night, sometimes a little law night.
Yeah,
you know,
might have to.
But you may have to. But the rant is about how the Massachusetts State Police, if they think this guy is doing them any service, to let him get up there and testify like he testified, that we're going to watch some of this. It's an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed for my police friends who are good policemen, state policemen, all over the United States, and policemen, to see this, he's trying to get out of answering questions, trying to embarrass, everybody, trying to say that he wouldn't trust Alan Jackson. It was outrageous. And by the way, Scott McGinnis, before we segue, I guess we should tell that Gail was boots on the ground today. Awesome to see her in the fold as always. Okay, so anyhow, but it was ridiculous to the point where the judge Kenney had to give him an instruction to please answer the question. Can you imagine how bad he had to be to get an instruction for the defense for Judge Kenney? I think we have frozen Michael. Michael is frozen. Scott, if you're anywhere in the neighborhood, you see Michael, he's there frozen and all. And he's got the controls right now to let us look at this and all. So Linda tells me, thank you, I love your name, Linda, that you outraged. Me too. I'm outraged on behalf of not just watching, not just being a lawyer, but outraged on behalf of people who, as I said, I'm outraged when I see a bad lawyer, right? I'm outraged when I see a doctor committing malpractice. I'm outraged when I see a cop acting like this. And for him to suggest that the search warrants that he was looking at, that Proctor signed, weren't valid, I mean, when you'll hear the rant, you'll see. We're going to start this episode now. We're going to call it Linda's Rants because and I think everybody in the chat was feeling the same way today, Michael, as we were summing up with Yuri Bukhenik. Remember, he was the one last year who, and I'm going to say it, lied, because he sat there on that stand all the time saying Proctor never had access to that SUV, was never near that right tail light of the SUV. And he showed all this film, right? See. And then the next day, Alan Jackson, like in the middle of his cross, said, wait a second. You know that film was inverted. So unless you weren't going to tell the jury that it's inverted, and that is Proctor standing right next to that right taillight of Karen Reed's SUV, and you weren't going to tell this jury there, I had to tell you on cross-examination. Okay, I think, quite frankly, to me, when I remember that kind of stuff, it just makes my blood boil if the judge has treated the defense like that, because she should be treating the prosecution like that, and to put on witnesses who they know have lied. Second rant.
So, yes, obviously I'm having some in and out issues with the Starlink here, which is a pain, but I'm going to try and launch this video. And I don't know if Missy has access to it because we were working on two different things today.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Sergeant Bukhenik.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to talk to you for a second about roles in this case, in this investigation. Would you agree with me that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator as well as the case agent in charge of this case?
He was assigned as the case officer for the case.
In that position, given the fact that it was his assignment, would you agree with me that he had a leadership role insofar as the investigation of the case was concerned?
I wouldn't call it a leadership role. It's more of a facilitator, liaison between the DA's personnel within the office and the state police. He also helps facilitate any missions, outstanding tasks that need to be completed.
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
He did, yes. That would be myself.
That would be you.
Yes.
Every case has some lead trooper in your unit, correct? Every case is assigned to someone to sort of be in charge and lead the charge of the investigation. Is that right?
Every case has a case officer that manages the investigation.
Right. And managing the investigation doesn't mean just, sort of typing up schedules. It means actually managing the investigation, like deciding what search warrants are going to be written in certain circumstances. That's one example, correct?
They're responsible for writing and authoring those search warrants. Sometimes the recommendation, suggestion, or leadership comes from the supervisors or the DA staff, where their experience might dictate otherwise.
And sometimes it comes from the lead case agent himself or herself, correct?
At times, yes.
Okay. So have you ever seen such obfuscation over something that's truly undisputed? Is it disputed in any way that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator? So why is Bukhenik going so bending over backwards to suggest that it was some sort of co-leadership, because he was Proctor's supervisor at the time?
Not only is it undisputed, when Proctor was fired, out, the head who fired him, or the state police, or the head of the disciplinary who fired him, called him that he's being terminated because of his actions as lead investigator in this case. So again, I blame Hank. I blame Hank Brennan. Okay, here's why. I blame Hank, because I think there was two things going on here. One was that he wanted to try to minimize, because remember, they've minimized Proctor. Now the jury is hearing Proctor, but they don't really have. If they haven't seen the first trial, they don't really know what all this means, right? They don't know why the defense is starting to talk about him, and so they're trying to minimize him and minimize his role. And they figured, since they have to minimize his role, right? Let the defense try to maximize his role. And I think that's the first thing that's going on here. And the second thing, of course, is that they really didn't touch upon Bukhenik validating the Sallyport video, and that's
did surprise me. That did surprise
well, they're really touching it because they're going to object, and they're going to say it's beyond the scope of cross-examination when we get to it. By the way, before we go on, we should recognize Michael. Yeah. Well,
yes, go ahead.
I know you say there's no way, but I'm not sure.
There's no way they can keep that out. Well, I'm not factoring in the Judge C.
You're not factoring in the Judge C.
But
and as a matter of fact, Michael says, member for 2 months, since the Sallyport video was admitted last year, and he's on the record speaking about it, is AJ allowed to introduce that video on cross? I'm not. He can introduce the video, but I'm not sure he's allowed to introduce the cross-examination where Bukhenik failed to tell the jury about it. That's where I think that's going to be iffy. And Madeira Beach caregiver, thank you again for your donation, Madeira Beach. Sadly, I missed everything today, so I don't have a clue what you're all ranting about. But I rewind when I get home from work at midnight. Wow. Just wanted dedication. To give you all a heads up of a gift coming. Stay tuned. Oh, Madeira Beach, you are so too sweet. Thank you so much.
So nice. What a surprise. Rescue vehicles back and forth. Here's an interesting note. Maybe I yelled at Brennan at lunch. I should say I yelled toward him. I wasn't yelling at him. He didn't want to talk. But as I was coming back from a comfort break, getting ready for the 6 o'clock, and by the way, I found, thanks to the folks at Court TV, I found a new restroom that is open when the one here at the Registry of Deeds is not. Key information when you're on the ground. So I'm coming back and I'm walking past the courthouse, and who do I see out beside the courthouse having a smoke? But Adam Lally. So, and this is at about 5:45, right? And I said, what, you're not done for the day? And he said, oh no, far from it. He sounded like he had the weight of the world, on his shoulders. So whatever you may think about Adam Lally, that's a slice of the real world for him.
That's a pretty good, actually a pretty good scoop there. By the way, Joanna Goddess, who we tracked you down, Joanna, as you know, because you were at the previous trial, Judge. But we actually found you. My God, I hope you'll never accuse us of stalking, because we had you on our show, as you know, on manifesting. Jury will find Karen Reed not guilty. Thank you again for that. All of you have been feeding Michael here by your donations, by the way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm gaining more weight.
But really, so he's there far from it, and he said that to you. That's kind of interesting.
I'm not sure that's breaking the gag rule. He didn't really. I guess you could consider that as substance of some sort, but no.
No, that's not the gag rule. No,
or like small talk.
Working. Yeah, if it's still working. But
I was surprised. I mean, it was almost 6 o'clock, and he was clearly on a break, not leaving. So,
Mm,
let me see if I can
so
zoom this ahead to
okay.
some of the other more fun parts.
As
And
as
there
you're
was a lot of
zooming
fun parts.
ahead, yeah, as you're zooming ahead with that, it's kind of interesting because they can't be talking to Bukhenik because he's in the middle of cross-examination. So,
Give me 1 second.
I'm sorry,
I don't want to
1-3.
ruin your presentation here.
Ah,
Search warrant ending in 1-3. I misspoke.
I thought Alan Jackson said
Okay.
something to him.
Is
at
that a search
time.
warrant?
It wasn't this time, but it was the next time.
Oh, it was the next
and I
time?
think, I think Alan Jackson said something like, "Oh, I'm sure you don't," or something. You know,
Right.
I'm surprised that there wasn't any, chastising from the bench on that.
For, generally speaking, Karen Reed's cell phone.
The quality of this photocopy is so poor, I cannot make out exactly what it's for, but
Is it my
there is
lunch
an
menu?
overlay of print. I can read what is presented to me, if that's what you want me to do. I do not know if this is an authentic copy of a search warrant.
Let's just look at the affidavit. Can you tell me who the affiant is?
I mean, the struggle he has here over this document.
On this document, the affiant is Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to by the way, just staying with that for a second, you said you don't recognize it. Do you recognize it as being attendant to this?
The application or the affidavit?
The search warrant. Well,
Again,
they go together.
The application or the together?
They go together.
I understand that, but I'm asking which document you want me to.
The document in total. In other words, it's not a search warrant dealing with a different case.
Worse
It's
the second time.
dealing with Ms. Reed's case, correct?
Oh, that case.
Again, I cannot say from the search warrant because of the quality of it. The addendum A appears to be with this case.
Okay. Have you
And
ever
the
seen it before?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever seen it before, this search warrant?
I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't testify to that.
So this could be a search warrant that you never even saw?
Based on what you're presenting to me, never having seen or not having read all the details of it, I cannot say whether I've seen it before or not.
So you're not sure that Michael Proctor didn't just do the search warrant without your knowledge? As you sit here.
I don't know if this is truly Michael Proctor's product.
Think that might be a forgery? His
I'm
name?
sorry?
You think that might be a forgery at the end of that affidavit?
Did we lose both Michael and the feed at the same time? Oh my goodness. Well, let's talk about this. By the way, Running on Caffeine says, as the supervisor of Proctor, would Yuri have received
Water seal from court. I will tell you that that's what it appears to be. What you've shown me here, I don't know what this is.
Otherwise, looking at that document, seeing the affidavit, seeing the addendum, seeing Michael Proctor's name on it, no clue whether or not that's a warrant that's attendant to this case that Michael Proctor drafted and submitted. You have no clue.
I can't take you at your word.
I'm not asking you to take me at my word, sir. I'm not testifying. I'm asking you to take the document at his word. Do you recognize it or not? If you don't, you don't.
I do not know.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Again, how stupid does he look? I mean, what does he think he's gaining? You know, when Karen Reed left court today, and for those who haven't seen it, look at the video of the exits, as I call them. I asked her that question. I said, do you think Sergeant Bukhenik was trying to protect himself, or how did I phrase it? I can't remember. Was he trying to distance himself from Proctor or protect Proctor? And her answer was just what you would imagine. This is the supervisor of Proctor, the now fired trooper. Not fired for other issues, fired for what he did in this case, as Alan Jackson said in his opening statement. So people can see what's happening here. I just don't know what in his brain he thinks he's gaining.
Yeah, but does the jury get it? Because they don't know, supposedly, they don't know the significance of
Well, of
Proctor.
course. But I think even
That's
on
the
its
question.
face, this guy looks like he's doing everything he possibly can to avoid answering a pretty simple question about a document. If he doesn't recognize they've got bigger problems at the Massachusetts State Police than we know about, I just think that would be, common sense.
By the way, Scott McGinnis said the cross-examination is going to go all the way through tomorrow. Jackson's only an eighth of the way through. Redirect will go into Monday, and then probably recross if the judge allows it on it. So also running on caffeine as the supervisor of Proctor, would Uri have received a copy of the firing finding? Can Jackson use it? Well, he knows he's seen it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's seen it. The question is whether the judge will let them use it as a document at all. I mean, as a governmental document, and say what's the relevance? We already know he's fired, and what does it have to do with what is the prejudice that way? I mean, I think she's going to find a way to keep it out, but I mean, that's going to be a fight. All right.
Oh yeah, and should we get there, that in itself could be reversible error. But
right, I agree with you.
We're not sure if we're going to get there.
I have to put up Linda because Linda, I love the name. She's having trouble sending a donation. Missy, can you help Linda? She would like to feed Michael Bryant. By the way, Michael Bryant's not in jail yet, and you notice he was actually in the buffer zone today.
Yeah, we had some fun this morning. Very interesting, and the Stadies have been helpful.
Oh, we keep losing him though. So Linda, Missy's going to help you. Missy Mayhem will help you. We keep losing him. Luckily, we have all of our great people. Joanna Gaius is back again. Defense is hidden reasonable deal with all witnesses out of the park. Defense is reasonable doubt. Showed reasonable doubt. I'm sure that's what you say. Hidden all witnesses out of the park. Thank you, Joanna. Again, thank you so much. You're just wonderful. Why don't you stop down? Well, not next time. Michael's going to be coming home, but maybe in 2 weeks, go down and stop and see Michael so he can meet you.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah. And I'm guessing that's your little dog, right? And your little dog. Let's see.
Gonna have to answer that.
Let's see if we can move along a little bit here.
You keep freezing.
That was, I know, and again, I'm going to write a nasty letter to Elon. Part of it is, and we've talked about this before, trees. Trees are not the friend of Starlink, and is also inclement. There's some threats in the forecast, so all of that combines. And to throw in another factor, these are probably the biggest buildings in Dedham, the registry and the courthouse. So we're bouncing all over the place. So we're doing the
Joanna said she will go down and see you, but he's going to leave tonight. So next time he's there. And by the way, Scott McGinnis is also Scott. We should have you on as co-host. Maybe you'll co-host with me next Friday.
What, Friday? Yeah, on Friday.
No, not next Friday. I have yet to attend this trial, so I haven't seen the jury yet. But we are being told that some of the jury box are relatively young, mid-20s. Some even look younger. I haven't seen the jury yet this time. Interesting.
Yeah, that is what we've heard, that they seem to be younger, meaning 40s-ish and younger, and they have there's some thought that they have a different view of police in general. So
it's the same report.
Same report, different paragraph, also talking about, or the different sentence, talking about a July 2023 CPD or Canton Police Department video that was also requested, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. That particular part of the report, where I'm directing your attention to July of 2023, there was a Canton Police Department video requested by someone, correct?
Yes.
Who was that requested by?
Trooper Proctor.
And who delivered it to Trooper Proctor?
I did.
Turn to tab 11, please.
Okay, we're frozen again. Let me answer a question while we come back. Bob Harding said, what happened to O'Keefe's socks? If he was in the house, it may have dog hair. Yeah, I don't know what happened to O'Keefe's socks. Okay, we're going forward.
And who is it that's listed as having received and reviewed and analyzed the town library videos?
Give me just 1 second. I have to read the report.
correct?
I would say so, based on this copy's information on there. Yes, I would say so.
And who's the person who submitted the items that I'll ask you about?
It is Trooper Michael Proctor.
And those items include clothing, is that right? We don't have to go through them line by line, but generally, you see clothing items on there?
The first line is a clothing item, yes.
That includes a lot of what we saw today, Sergeant Bukhenik, the shirt, the orange shirt, the sweatshirt, blue jeans, belt, correct?
Blue jeans, belt. What was the other thing that you listed?
Shirts.
There was a shirt, yes.
It also lists certain items of plastic, certain items of glass, is that right?
Some of those items are listed, yes.
And it even mentions the straw that you talked to Mr. Brennan about, correct?
Yes, the straw is mentioned and numbered.
Okay, how about that straw? How about that straw? What do you think of the straw?
Well, before I said the straw, apparently we have just hit 12,000 subscribers on this episode of this show.
Oh, we did. We broke the barrier.
Yeah, it just seemed like yesterday we just hit 10,000. It's interesting about the straw because he's trying to show that he left with the straw and he had there was an objection to it in the glass. I mean, it could be anybody's straw.
And
I
it
mean,
was
it's on the street 10 days later.
Yeah, it was on the 10th, right? On February 10th when they finally found that.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a straw.
Kid walking across the yard tossing a straw.
I have one here.
Could have been you. Could have been you with your Duncan. Yeah, I mean the evolving crime scene with zero protection, zero attempts even.
Yep. We keep losing Michael. You know, Elon, we really have this complaint here. Supposedly these are working all over the world where there's fires and all, but they don't seem to work where there's inclement weather. And that seems to be a little bit of a problem with our mini Starlink.
It does. It really does. So
really.
I will...
I'm waiting with bated breath as to what Michael Bryant's going to say.
All of those items were submitted on March 14th, 2022, correct?
That's what the form indicates, yes.
And all of those items were submitted by Michael Proctor from his custody and control to the crime lab, correct?
That's who signed the form.
So the things that, according to the form at least, and your experience with forms of this nature, it was Michael Proctor who possessed and controlled those items before they were turned over to the to the crime lab, correct?
That would be accurate, yes.
So he would have maintained all of it, is that right? At least at some point?
They would have been in his custody as he's transporting them for processing at the lab, of course.
And then after he maintained control of it, eventually he turned it over and submitted those items, correct?
If the form is accurate, then yes, that's absolutely right.
So we've just gone through a few things. What you and I have just gone through is not nearly everything that Michael Proctor was involved with in terms of this investigation, correct? We didn't talk about witness interviews, right?
We did not talk about witness interviews, no.
So there's a lot more that Michael Proctor on a day-to-day basis as the case officer was involved in addition to what you and I just talked about, right?
Yes, there was many more things he was involved in. As I mentioned, that was just report 83. There's 100+ reports in this case that were written. There's a lot of evidence that was collected and processed. So he had a part in the investigation as the case officer managing the tasks. But there's a lot of people involved in this investigation.
So here, Linda, he's minimizing Proctor's role, right? Because once they learn that he acted inappropriately and was trashed and ultimately fired for his work on this case, it's supposed to make them feel better about the work that was done. I don't understand that.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it either. And by the way, welcome Laura McLeod, new member. Welcome here to Justice Serve TV. I don't understand it except that in some way he wants to protect Proctor, and in other ways, you know, he doesn't want to own Proctor, right? He doesn't want to own him.
And that's what Karen Reed said, you know, when she answered my question. It was, this guy was the supervisor. So anything he dumps on Proctor about makes him look bad. It puts him in a very weird position.
Yeah, and Joe Giacalone told us the other night, remember that as a supervisor, you're supposed to read all the reports of the subordinates and either sign off of them, and if there's something bad or wrong in them, you as a supervisor are responsible. Exhibit A. All right, he's frozen again. You know, he's frozen again. I mean, you know, okay. Madeira Beach caregiver. Let me do this while we're at it.
Wait
Whoa,
a minute.
Madeira Beach.
Wait
whoa,
a minute.
wait. I'm a self-employed private duty hospice nurse. Yeah, I may want to talk to you about how that is. Well, I am not at liberty to divulge my patient's name. This patient's a retired judge. We've been watching JSTV together since trial 2 started. The judge says, praying for justice for Sergeant John O'Keefe. Here's a gift from the judge. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Your Honor. That's amazing.
That is amazing. So Michael, so when you'll be able to go back, you know, where Michael's been there 10 times and he's going to go back 11 times, not next week due to some commitments that he and I both have, but the week after. And this helps fund him to get there. And you see how important it is to the people of Canton that you don't just go in and, you know, you leave, that you go in and you talk to people. And they really have adopted you, Michael Bryant. Right, Scott? He came into that, whatever that thing is behind you that has the bathrooms, that the registry of deeds. And I think they would looked at you a little askew, but you've really shown that you're there to listen to people, and we're there to tell everyone's story, not just, you know, everyone's story. So thank you very much. That helps us very much. And if we can get
I'm
our
telling you,
Starlink
if it's not the Starlink, it's the emergency vehicles. Somebody's trying to tell me something today. You know, I'll throw this out now while I'm still on, if I am. But now it's starting to rain a little bit. Perfect. Where I was earlier today, a very wide open location, but about half a block down. You know, I may retreat to that going forward because I'd rather we have a solid signal than this wonderful backdrop, which is the courthouse. It's just, you know, as the trees fill in, the signal goes bad. So we'll think about that.
Okay.
So are we going to continue, or is it really?
Yeah, you want to continue a little more?
I'm more concerned about our viewers, you know, getting kind of annoyed with the various.
Yeah, viewers, tell us. I mean, I know it must be annoying to get stop and start on this, and let's see what we can do. One more.
Touched or authored or reviewed or.
Let me give a. Remember that the shoe was quite
3 people you
right?
interviewed were Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert, correct?
Not correct.
Who else?
The defendant.
Other than Miss Reed, and before you got to Miss Reed, because you didn't get to Miss Reed till 3:34, correct? In the afternoon.
In the afternoon. I don't know exactly what time we began the conversation.
I'm talking about in the morning when you were trying to figure out what was going on. You interviewed 3 people.
Yes, we did.
3 civilians.
At one point, we interviewed 3 civilians, the homeowner at 34 Fairview Road, and 2 witnesses that were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant the night prior, and then one of the witnesses that was with the defendant when Mr. O'Keefe was discovered.
And these are individuals that you made the assessment had either been with or shortly been with at the time or shortly before he was last seen alive, correct?
Based on the information that we had at that time, one of the individuals was with him right before he was seen alive, and the other 2.
Right before he was last seen alive.
One of the individuals was with him right before he was last seen alive, and 2 of the individuals saw the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe together.
And those same 2 individuals were also with Mr. O'Keefe just minutes before he was last seen alive. The waterfall, correct?
All 3 of the individuals were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant at Waterfall, yes.
And all 3 of the individuals were also at 34 Fairview when Mr. O'Keefe arrived. You had that information, didn't you?
We did not have information of Mr. O'Keefe arriving at the house. He was dropped off on the lawn.
And all 3 people, all 3, were either named McCabe or Albert. Those are the 3 people that you had information from, correct?
Which information? We had information for a lot of different sources at that point in time.
We're talking about the first 3 interviews that you did, the first 3 civilian interviews you did that morning. Still on the same thing. You mentioned talking to 3 people at a residence in Canton. Brian Albert, Jim McCabe, Matt McCabe. Mm-hmm. All 3 were at 34 Fairview when they indicated John O'Keefe arrived in an SUV. They all told you that, right?
They were inside the home when the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe arrived in the SUV.
These are the very people that would have a motive to lie if they were somehow involved, right?
Can you answer that, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor.
You're a professional investigator, correct?
That's correct.
Homicide investigator, right?
That's correct.
Many years of experience, right? Say yes?
I don't know what many means to you, but...
No, of course not. Let me, how many years of experience do you have?
In homicide?
Correct.
10 next week.
Okay.
Well, Michael, we can't hear you now, okay? I know it is character. There you go.
Sorry. You know, I was listening to the recording, and in the recording of his testimony, I hear sirens going by. So they're either going by live when I'm here, or they're going by from the court recording. Anyway, this guy, what a moron. I don't know how many years you think is a lot of years. You can't talk about what would motivate somebody to lie. Isn't that Detective 101? I mean, when you bend over backwards like that, nobody's buying it. Nobody.
Yeah, that's true. No one's buying it. Blessed in Texas, another donation. Linda, I saw you walk to Monmouth County, New Jersey. I was born there. Yes. I moved to Texas 6 months old. 99.99 Texan and 0.01 Boardwalk. Go. Yes, I'm a Jersey girl from Monmouth County. Proud of it. Bruce Springsteen country. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Thank you. Blessed in Texas. I knew I liked you for some reason.
Yep. You knew there was some kindred spirit connection there.
Yeah.
So anyway, just before this testimony, remember there was this reference to what in part prompted these interviews, and there was a statement made at 10:41 a.m. when the ME was called. Right, we know the ME, we know that whole story, but the ME was told, quote, John O'Keefe was struck in the face with a cocktail glass. That was one of the law enforcement officers' concerns. I'm not 100% sure it was Proctor, but I think it might have been, could have been Tully. But initially, that seemed to be something they were concerned about. Now,
right.
if you believe the defense that they had a conspiracy plan all along to set up Karen Reed, that doesn't fit that theory, right? But the timing.
It was actually this guy. Wasn't this guy in the notes of the medical examiner? With him
he was.
Together? Right. He was in the
he
notes,
was.
Right?
But, he and Tully were both, and Proctor were all
right.
part of the axis of evil. And so I'm not sure who actually made that statement, but it was transmitted to the ME. So the ME could, as we talked about yesterday with Dr. Michael Baden, could incorporate that into the autopsy and figure out what the hell happened. So my point is that was very early on, and perhaps if you believe the conspiracy frame job theory, before that had properly gelled, because that statement doesn't help your conspiracy theory.
Yeah. By the way, Linda obviously got help from Missy and everybody in the chat. Linda, she gave more money to Justice Serve TV so you can keep making those trips there. I need a PDF on instructions on how to find glass in a yard while driving by. Anyone? What a show today. Or maybe it was a shoe today, because it was a shoe and a show, because I think we're going to hear that the evidence the evidence bags both have two left feet, even though there's a right shoe at the hospital and left shoe supposedly at there.
Yes, I'm trying to see if we get there. Yeah, I hope we do before I turn into a pumpkin here. But let's see if we get a little further on. I know there was a break before that, so there's also the big sock question. Remember the sock question?
Loop through the jeans on the left side. I would say that is Mr. O'Keefe's clothing that we picked up and bagged.
Okay, if you could unzoom that for me. One more question. You see Mr. O'Keefe's left leg and right leg from about the little lower than mid-thigh down, correct?
Mid-thigh down, I see his legs, yes.
Okay, you see his right knee?
The interior portion of it, yes.
Okay, do you see any scrapes or marks or cuts or abrasions on that right knee?
Not from this point, no.
Thank you. We can take that down. May I approach?
Yes.
I think we're getting to the shoe here, the really big shoe.
We have a really good picture from yesterday's evidence bag. We probably should tweet it to show that it says left shoe on the evidence bag. And obviously that was a problem today.
Yeah, but apparently it is not. So
bagging the evidence once it's dried and processing it. I highly doubt Trooper Proctor had access to the Beast machine to print that label.
Right. I'm not asking if he printed the label. I'm asking if he bagged the item and walked it up to the evidence locker and the label was printed up there.
Again, I don't know who bagged the items.
That would be normal protocol, though, correct?
Somebody else bagging the items?
The case officer bagging the items. He's the one that seized it along with you. He laid them out on the butcher paper along with you. He would be the one to gather them up. I mean, the evidence officer is not going to come down there and do that without the case officer knowing, correct?
Not necessarily. The evidence officer's responsibility is to handle the evidence, so I don't know who handled the evidence that day.
How would the evidence officer know to go down there? How would he know that there were clothing items being laid out to dry on butcher paper unless the case officer told him?
They would walk by it every day and see it. That's their workstation. So
right.
They would know that, hey, this evidence is drying. There's only 4 detectives in the office at that time working on this case. We communicate daily, right. So they would know that, hey, it's dried. Let's.
Well, that's a lot of speculation, especially from the supervisor, literally, who just said, I have no idea who bagged it up. They weren't communicating with you, were they?
I was giving you an explanation of what could have happened.
Right. Speculation about what could have happened, right?
Well, I certainly did not bag that item.
Right. But your best estimate would be, knowing the protocols at the MSP and in your unit, would be the case officer who's controlling the items of evidence would have bagged it and submitted it into the evidence locker.
I do not know who bagged it.
Not given an inch.
So for 6 days, anybody who had access to that room could have handled that clothing in any way they wanted to.
That's correct.
And that includes former Trooper Michael Proctor.
That's correct.
You know, Talon Jackson says former trooper, when Hank Brennan was doing it was Mr. Proctor, trying to get away from it. But Alan Jackson is always former trooper Michael Proctor.
Sorry, I had to mute while the latest. I mean, there must be some major emergency going on because I think the fire station is empty. There have to have been 6, 7 vehicles. Anyway, this is so important because we will learn, the jury will learn going forward, what was found in the clothing, right? Piece of tail light, supposedly, and whatever else was found in it. Well, now you're getting the foundation for how it was first on the floor of the hospital, then commingled in the evidence area, and then exposed and left open for at least 6 days where anybody wandering by could do whatever they wanted to it. That's going to be important.
Right. And we did a little demonstration. We had our paper bags with the little polycarbonate, like looking like glass, and put bags in there. When you mix them up too, when you put it all in there, they get stuck in there with the clothing.
Yeah, and I noticed today when they were marking some of the taillight pieces, some of them had been taped together by whoever had reconstructed.
Right.
What the hell? Yeah. You know, so, but they didn't take them all apart. They just took some of them apart, and the others were still left taped together. I mean, were you just giving them to the kids to play with, like an erector set? I mean, what is going on there?
Yeah. But this guy, you know, he started out really strong, right? He sat up, I'm a Marine, former Marine. I sort of served for this country, blah, 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 blah. But boy, the cross-examination, which apparently we're only one of the eighth way through, it's gone downhill pretty fast. But I think this has to be Hank. Okay, I'm telling you, you know, he's been good with the other witnesses, telling them not to argue. So this guy's not arguing, but he decided to go his own way, right? Like, yeah, but I'm not giving in to that defense attorney, you know, who embarrassed me last time. Well, guess what, Buster? He's embarrassing you again.
Yeah, and I think Karen Reed said, I think he was a little worse than last time. Yeah, I think you could say that.
I was driving to work, so I would have to say 8:45 or so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact timestamp, but if you know, if you have something to refresh my memory, I could tell you if that's accurate.
I'm not going to hold you to the exact time. It was in the morning on the 4th.
It was. All right.
Did you know Chief of Police Ken Berkowitz before you responded on the 4th to 34 Fairview?
Yes, I knew who he was. I had met him previously, and he was present on the 29th when the vehicle was delivered to the Sallyport.
He was actually in the Sallyport, at least at some time, when the vehicle was delivered, correct?
He was there at some point. I had a conversation with him.
Okay. Tall guy, short guy?
Chief Berkowitz was a shorter guy.
Okay. Do you know who Brian Higgins is?
I do.
What's your relationship with Brian Higgins? Or what was it? I should be more pointed to this, Sergeant. What was your relationship back in 2022, January of 2022?
Brian Higgins was a federal agent, and I crossed paths with him on a couple of investigations, strictly professional relationship, a federal agent and a state trooper.
So not a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz.
Okay,
I did not know.
Sirens froze Michael, but
those weren't mine. Nope, those weren't mine.
Those are the courtroom.
Those were in court from earlier today.
Brian Higgins actually tell you and Michael Proctor in an interview that he had a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz. He called it one of his better friends.
Okay.
Sustained rescue technique.
Sure. During the course of your investigation, did you learn, although you may not have personal knowledge of it, did you learn that Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz had some sort of a personal relationship?
If you show me a report stating that, I would like to take a look. If it's written in a report authored by me or the author approved, I will take it for to be fact.
Now you don't have a memory of the conversation with Brian?
Let's refresh the recollection here. Brian Higgins, as you may recall, the ATF agent who, when he learned there was going to be an investigation, his phone could be taken, went to an Air Force base close by, Federal Air Force Base, took the SIM card out of his phone, threw away his phone, then changed carriers and got a new phone. Along with Brian,
take up the time to look for it. We'll put our hands on that. But in the meantime, let me ask you a few other questions.
Okay, I think I've worn out my welcome here.
Yeah, this is not going to it, but you know what, Michael? Tell everybody where we can find the videos that you've taken the last 2 days and what they are.
Yeah, obviously they're posted on. Just look through the content, and you'll find the couple that we did today, a couple that we did yesterday. Give you a sense of what's going on here on the ground that we've had a chance to explore, and we'll be back. We're going to do it again next time I'm up here, and we keep meeting folks that have a very interesting take on what's happening because this is their area, this is their town. And it means more to them than anybody else. We're just driving by, but we're hoping to give them a voice. So
yeah, we want to absolutely give them a voice. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is you'll find with the Karen Reed both yesterday and today that Michael asked her the question while he's in the buffer zone and without that press pass, by the way, because he's fearless, and she answers him directly. So it's almost like having an interview with her because she's the one, the attorney's under a gag order and all. And then we're hoping to get a neighbor on the show. And you did also, if they haven't seen, you went back to Fairview and looked at where the chief's house is. And what came important today, Michael, is that they were back there so many times through February 10th that they could have had the chief look at his cameras, put his cameras there and see, well, what were the police doing? They actually said today, Bukhenik, the last time it was raining hard and they spent a lot of time going back and forth. And so they didn't feel they need to document or take any photographs of where they found this piece, supposedly. You can't make this up.
I know. I mean, these days, can you use this cell phone if nothing else? Does it have to be an official police department camera? Can you just take a picture? Yeah. When was this? 1963? Anyway, okay, I'm going to get out of here. I'm actually, obviously, they're turning the lights off on me. It's getting
yeah, you
late.
have a 3-hour trip home yet, so I understand that.
Thanks to everybody who's contributed, who's been watching, who's been supporting us as we try to just cover this case because there's nothing like it. We're not here for any agenda. We're here to tell you what's going on. You make up your mind. We'll give you our opinions one way or the other about what we see. And that's what we do at Justice Served TV. So we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And before you go, please make sure you do hit the like button, the share, the subscribe. That's all free. I mean, some of you are members. You're also very generous, and we thank you for that. And we have a lot to go because some of your questions are very prescient. Who's going to be able to bring in the Sally Port video? I don't think the prosecution is going to do it. I think they're going to force the defense to do it and then attack it. That's their game plan. And quite frankly, you know what? If you're the prosecution and you can't bring out all the stuff that's problematic and the truth as to what happened, you're not seeking justice. You're seeking an alternative agenda, in my opinion. But, that's just my opinion as a former prosecutor who tried to do the right thing and now a defense attorney.
I agree. So we'll see you next time. Michael Bryant here. Try to do the right thing.
Linda Kenney Baden, I'll see you at 8:50 tomorrow morning. I'll be on the air.
Well, that gets very